Live from News Channel 8, this is Toyota Sports Talk.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. Another NFL season is right around the corner. We're going to do something a little different tonight. This show is all about fantasy football, sleepers, busts, rookie to own, and projections for some of those Redskins players. All that and more coming your way on Toyota Sports Talk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Friday edition of Toyota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Scott Abraham. Thank you for tuning in. Football fans, fantasy football fans, this show is for you tonight. In a moment, I'll be joined by WTOP sports anchor and fantasy sports analyst with Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Chris Cichon. But as always, this show is all about you, the viewers. We need you to call in for our question of the night. Fairly open-ended here. Go with it any way you want. What are your fantasy football questions for the upcoming season? Players to own, players to stay away from, drafting strategies. We'll try to give you some answers. Give us a call, 703-387-1020. With that said, time to welcome in WTOP sports anchor and fantasy sports analyst with Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Chris Cichon. It's his Toyota Sports Talk debut. Chris, great to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to put you on the hot seat tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can view your work and listen to your work.
Sure thing. Well, I am a anchor on WTOP Saturday nights. You can hear updates about the Nationals now. Unfortunately, not the Capitals and the Wizards, as we wish we would be talking about here. But also at SiriusXM, Scott, I am an analyst and a producer there, host and work a number of different shows. So a lot of different opinions, a lot of different people that I talk to, and we'll see how the fantasy season shapes up. 2017, it's almost here.
Yeah, always exciting. So viewers, give this guy a look. He did some great work. So fantasy football, never too early to talk fantasy football.
Certainly.
First of all, what is it about fantasy sports? What is it about fantasy football that's really, you think, captivated this entire country and this world, for matter of fact?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, if you're rooting for a team, let's say you're a Cleveland Browns fan here in Washington, D.C., or really anywhere, and you're just dealing with constant losing and you're upset every Sunday, right. You have a dog in the fight every Sunday. When you have these players, you watch them, you can be in a league with your coworkers and you can beat them, and then on Monday morning come in and brag to them. And really, it's just a matter of being involved in every single game, whether it's Thursday, Sunday, or Monday. It's just a lot of fun, and when you win, it's even better.
I mean, every year it seems to be getting more and more popular. I mean, is there a ceiling here, or is this just going to keep going and going?
Well, I certainly think it'll keep going and going, and the birth of daily fantasy sports and DraftKings and FanDuel, right. Their merger coming, which is expected in the fall, I think that will continue to only grow, as well as the season-long game, which is continuing to just be very popular.
All right, 2017 football season right around the corner. Mini camps start this week. The Redskins had their mini camp on Wednesday. Obviously, training camp will begin in late July and August, so never too early to talk some football. So let's talk some fantasy football here, upcoming season. Give me some players, some sleepers that we want to keep an eye on for these draft boards.
Sure thing. Well, a guy I like, Scott, Cameron Meredith. Very good value you're going to get out of this guy. He's with the Chicago Bears. Wasn't highly touted coming out of Illinois State, but he ended up with 888 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. The thing you got to keep in mind when it comes to wide receivers and passing game, when you're dealing with bad teams, they have to throw the football. Why? Because they need to try and catch up in games. Cameron Meredith is not going to have to deal with Alshon Jeffrey anymore in Chicago. He will be the main target getter from Mike Glennon, who I think is adequate enough to play the position. We're not going to see Mitch Trubisky yet, so I like Cameron Meredith quite a bit.
That's my concern with Cameron Meredith, with the quarterback situation. New guy coming in the offense, Mike Glennon. They draft Mitch Trubisky. There could be some quarterback controversy there. Is that good for a fantasy player?
I think if you're a wide receiver, it really doesn't matter because, you know, these guys are going to want to show off their arm, right? Mike Glennon's not going to hold on to the job if he's handing the ball off to Jordan Howard quite a bit. So I think it's totally okay whether it's Trubisky. I'd prefer Mike Glennon to be in that spot. We'll see how long he lasts. They gave him a big contract before they drafted Trubisky, which I didn't really understand. But, you know, I like Cameron Meredith.
It's the Bears. They're becoming the Redskins quickly.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you like your running back. What running back do you like here on your sleeper list?
Well, I've got Terrence West here out of the Baltimore Ravens, and you and I were talking. You're like, isn't a little bit of a crowded backfield there? They just got Danny Woodhead. Kenneth Dixon suspended the first 4 games of the season. Lorenzo Taliaferro has not really done anything that, you know, has warranted any sort of significant playing time. And Terrence West over 1,000 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. he can be a workhorse back for the Ravens, who ultimately, in their DNA, like to be a running football team. So I think Terrence West, with some nice matchups as well, two defenses that aren't that great to start off the year, and he'll be the main guy.
And the Ravens have a fairly easy schedule out of the gate. So maybe if he gets those legs churning, that momentum going for Terrence West, he may not lose control of that job when Dixon comes back. And obviously, Danny Wood had that third down back, change of pace type of back. But in terms of goal line carries, those short yardage touchdowns, Terrence West will be your guy for the Ravens. Let's go back to your wide receiver category. A guy kind of a late bloomer with the Minnesota Vikings last season.
Adam Thielen, yes, just inked a 4-year deal, almost $20 million. And he's pretty much locked into that number 2 wide receiver position behind Stephon Diggs out of the University of Maryland. Thielen, O-line is improving there in Minnesota, so I certainly like the ability of the quarterback, whoever it's going to be there. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater will be ready for the season quite yet, but we do have Sam Bradford throwing the football, who, again, adequate. Thielen got double-digit targets in quite a few games last year. I like Thielen. You can get him again in a later round. Maybe not the sexiest name, but he's going to be there for you if you want him.
Redskins fans may not like your next sleeper pick, but I think it's a great pick and somebody to keep an eye on from the quarterback position. He has some weapons now.
Yes,
Who are you
does.
liking at under center this year?
He has some weapons, and he's got a year of experience under his belt, and that's Carson Wentz from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Sorry, Redskins fans.
And those, yeah, I know, because you're going to have to deal with Torrey Smith, who's a deep threat. Hopefully you'll be able to catch him when he's running. He can still definitely run those 9 routes, and Alshon Jeffrey as well. 2 definite targets. Zach Ertz is there for him. They just signed LeGarrette Blount, so that'll take some pressure off Carson Wentz being able to, you don't have to win the game by yourself. You've got enough pieces around you. It'll make the second-year player a lot more comfortable.
No Peyton Manning anymore. Julius Thomas did very well with Mr. Manning in Denver. Not so well in Jacksonville. Has a new location this year in Miami. And you like him.
He's reunited with Adam Gase, who he had a ton of success with out there in Denver. 24 touchdowns in 2 years that he had. And he's in that now Y formation. So I like that. Basically, when the Dolphins last year tried to run that with Deion Sims, it just wasn't good enough. Julius Thomas, to me, 28, 29 years old. The guy is entering his prime right now. He can block and pass. I like Julius Thomas to be a threat in this Miami Dolphins offense. Ryan Tannehill, polarizing player from a quarterback position, but I think he will be able to get him the football quite a bit and help this offense out.
All right, just a recap for your sleepers for 2017. Cameron Meredith, Terrence West, Adam Thielen, Carson Wentz, and Julius Thomas. Personally, I really like Terrence West and Carson Wentz on that list. I'm going to punt on Cameron Meredith and Julius Thomas. But I like Wentz a lot, and I think Terrence West could be the guy, the bell cow for the Ravens, as you mentioned. We're just getting started here with my friend Chris Cichon. We're going to talk a little bus who to stay away from in your fantasy football, and obviously we're going to delve in a little bit more on the Redskins, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Reed. Who should you own for this upcoming season in the burgundy and gold on your fantasy teams? Stay with us. Toyota Sports Talk just getting started with my man Chris Cichon. Fantasy football. Give us a call.
I mean, it's a great opportunity. I mean, we're still young, so, the spot is open. So I feel like we're all going to make some huge strides this coming up camp. And, whatever happens, I'm sure we're going to have very talented back there.
Yeah, keep your eye on that Redskins 4th-round draft pick this year. Samaje Perine could be a big difference maker in that offense. Welcome back to this Friday edition of Toyota Sports Talk. We are joined by WTOP sports anchor and fantasy sports analyst with Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Chris Cichon. You can watch him on WTOP. Actually, not watch him. You can listen to him on WTOP on Saturday night at 15 and 45 after the hour. Ready to hit some phone lines here?
Let's do it, man.
Let's go to the phone lines. We're going to go Joe in New York. Joe, how are you? Joe hung up. Sorry, Joe. Okay, let's go to Sean in Hancock. Sean, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You got any fantasy football questions for our guru here?
I was wondering how much the fantasy stats reflect player contracts.
Good question. Fantasy stats. I mean, obviously, stats, numbers don't lie. How much does that kind of value when it comes to contract time?
Oh, I think it's certainly a huge thing. But when you're mentioning contracts, for example, when we're going to get to our busts here, I've got Deshaun Jackson on there.
Okay.
Why? Because he got paid already from his contract. What I look at when I'm looking at contracts and stats more so is guys that are entering into their free agency. Why? Because they're playing with more incentive. Let's just face it. You're going to want to play right that great year right before you do enter that period where you're about to get paid. So I do pay attention to things like that, what their stats look like if they are inflated right before they hit free agency.
And that's funny you mentioned that. One of my draft strategies is to kind of print out a list of those contract year players for the year. So I kind of pinpoint them because you got to believe there's some extra incentive that they want to get paid.
Yep.
So they're going to want to perform a little bit better on the field. So those are certainly some guys you need to keep an eye on come fantasy season. Let's talk a little Redskins fantasy football. Obviously, we heard from Samaje Perine, the 4th-round running back selection for the Washington Redskins, and you like him a lot, huh?
It was a dream scenario, I think, the Redskins grabbing Samaje Perine out of Oklahoma. The guy can do it all. He can run. He can catch the football as well as block. And, Scott, the reason I like him so much from a fantasy standpoint is, I mean, were you that impressed watching Rob Kelly last year, the undrafted free agent out of Tulane? He had his moments, certainly. Nice little story. But I think that Perine will be the best back in that backfield almost immediately. And we'll be able to learn from guys like Chris Thompson, who's a veteran there, and be able to eventually supplant Rob Kelly. I think Rob Kelly will probably start the year and get most of the carries, but as the year wears on, I like Perine to get a lot of that action. You can get him great value right now, possibly 10th, 11th round.
I was going to say that. Is this a type of player that maybe you don't draft and maybe pick up after a couple weeks on the waiver wire, or do you do like a late round pick, like a 10, 11th round pick, and just kind of stash him on your bench?
Depends on what kind of league you're in. If you're in a shallow league, 8 teams, 10-team league, then he might not get drafted if you're playing with shorter benches. But I think almost definitely if you're playing in a 12 or 14-team league, Samaje Perine's getting taken. You know, the fantasy owner out there is smart. They understand that the Redskins' running situation last year was not that great. So, you know, you want to get this running back out of Oklahoma who set some records there and was a great player.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Mike in Fairfax. Mike, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. What's your question?
Just simply wondering, like, overall, what you would think is a #1 pick running back for the year. Like, Ezekiel Elliott, he blew up last year, and so he's probably going to be one of the #1 picks for this season coming up. But obviously, David Johnson was really good. Le'Veon Bell is always a top pick. But then there's guys like Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson. I'm just curious what you are thinking in terms of who would be, in terms of like just a first-round sleeper running back, because you got to fill your roster.
Right.
So if you had to pick some guy that's in your 8 or 9 spot, who's going to be your running back out of all the top ones?
Great. Mike, thanks for the call and thanks for watching.
Sure.
I'll let you respond.
Well, if you're in the 8 or 9 spot in your drafts and you want to grab a running back, I like a guy like LaShawn McCoy. He might be getting up there in age, but Buffalo is a team, again, they want to run the football there. They have a running style of offense. LaShawn McCoy, again, catches the football and runs. And that's one thing you have to know, too, is know your league settings. If you are a PPR league, a guy like LaShawn McCoy will be valuable because he can catch the football out of the backfield. So that would probably be something like that. You mentioned David Johnson and Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, they will certainly be in the top 3 there.
Yeah, they'll probably be gone after 5 picks, though, those 3 running backs. And I like this Jay Ajayi. I think he had a really good, strong ending to the season. I think they can build on that. I also like Melvin Gordon potentially because you don't have Woodhead back there anymore. He's going to be the guy, the bell cow for the Chargers. And he, as you said, a PPR guy, Melvin Gordon, he'll be able to get those catches out of the backfield.
Definitely.
So we're going to take a break here. So we're going to talk a little more Redskins, what Cousins may do, what Jordan Reed may do, Terrell Pryor, and obviously we'll discuss his bus. Guys to stay away from in your fantasy football leagues. Fantasy football, the hot topic of the night. And we're going to be taking more of your phone calls. Give us a call, 703-387-1020. Stay with us. The fun is just beginning here on Toyota Sports Talk. Welcome back, my friends. Chris Cichon riding shotgun with me tonight on Toyota Sports Talk. You can follow him on Twitter at The Big Chi Show. Let's go back to the phone lines. Kurt in Southeast. Kurt, how are you?
I'm doing okay, man. How are you?
Good, good. What's your fantasy football question?
This one seems to get me like every year I play, and I probably need it from the expert. How can you distinguish what player is going to, like, say some teams got 2 running backs, but you pick the star running back. But then how do you know that second running back will have a good game? You see what I'm saying? That makes sense?
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of paying attention to what these coaches say and the injury report as well. You know, if a guy is listed as questionable and it's an ankle injury and you're a running back, do you think he's going to get 20, 25 carries? Probably not. You know, they're going to probably stay away from giving him re-aggravating that injury. So you have to pay attention to the injury report, 1, and then 2. You know, there's narratives there. Say a guy's returning to Minnesota. It's Adrian Peterson.
Right.
And they may say, oh, yeah, we're not going to use him much. But you don't think that Adrian Peterson's going to want to stick it to the Vikings? So stuff like that. Pay attention to Twitter.
If you want to be a successful fantasy football owner, I'm a big believer in putting the work in. Just like any job, anything you do, you need to do research. You need to invest, put in time, read the blogs, read articles, go on Twitter, read what's going on, because come Sunday, it'll make your job a lot easier when you're setting those lineups in your big matchups and in your key decisions. We got another phone call. We're going to go in Daniel in Woodbridge. Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. What is your question?
I would like to know what are some good late wide receiver rookie pickups.
Okay. He's going on the rookie train. We touched on running backs a little bit. McCaffrey, Fournette. He's thinking wide receiver. What wide receiver is kind of sticking out rookie-wise for you? Well,
you know, when you're looking at rookie wide receivers, I don't prefer them as much as a rookie running back per se, because rookie running backs can be thrown right in there, and as long as you're along with the scheme, like Joe Williams in San Francisco, for example, a nice scheme guy who will fit into Kyle Shanahan's system as well. Wide receivers tend to, you know, develop a little bit later on in there, but as far as the rookie wide receivers are concerned, the kid out of Tennessee, Corey Davis, I like him just because, again, Tennessee's the competition there. Rashard Matthews, okay. Tajay Sharp, okay. Marcus Mariota can throw the football. And so Corey Davis out of Western Michigan will probably be my number 1.
I got one for you. I grew up a Buffalo Bills guy, so obviously I follow the Buffalo Bills. A guy named Zay Jones. Pay attention to him. He's going to be starting opposite Sammy Watkins for the Buffalo Bills. I believe he was their second first-round pick this year. Maybe it was a second-round pick. I'm not sure. They moved up to go get Zay Jones out of East Carolina. Big, tall wide receiver. He's going to get targets because, frankly, they have no other wide receivers besides Sammy Watkins. So look for Zay Jones potentially to be maybe a 10th round, 11th round type of guy that you may be able to utilize down the stretch. Let's talk some busts, guys to stay away from this year, your fantasy football leagues. Who you got?
Sure. I'm going to lead off, and sorry about all the Cowboys fans here in the D.C. area, or maybe not. Dak Prescott.
No,
right.
Dak Prescott, you're staying away from.
I am, and it's more where he's getting drafted. I've seen him getting drafted over Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. I mean, come on, he is going to be a sophomore.
Sophomore slump.
I'm a firm believer in that teams this offseason are going to do their homework and figure out how to at least limit Dak's ability to run as well as throw the football. And he's going to be a good player in this league. I think he'll last a long time, but I think he is certainly due for a setback. He caught a lot of people by surprise last year.
Chris, the other one that surprised me on that list is Ben Roethlisberger. He has weapons. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, target vultures. Why would you want to stay away from Big Ben?
2 reasons. First and foremost, because he has a bad matchups down the stretch when you're in your fantasy playoffs, weeks 14 through 16 typically. And secondly, his home road splits are awful. I mean, he's thrown more interceptions the past 2 years than he has touchdowns on the road. So he's just not a guy I want to invest in as my quarterback to throw in there. You know, late round flyer, fine, but don't spend up to get Ben Roethlisberger.
Former Redskins wide receiver, new location, new team, Deshaun Jackson. You're not buying it.
Again, Scott, we talked about it. He just got paid. How motivated is he going to be down there in Tampa? And how much do you really believe in Jameis Winston? That's what it comes down to. I am not a foremost believer that Jameis Winston can ever be an elite quarterback in this league. And there's, again, too many weapons there. Mike Evans was a target monster last year. Is he going to supplant that? I mean, Deshaun Jackson's a deep threat. Is he going to go over the middle?
He can stretch the field, though.
He certainly can. I just worry that he's not going to go over the middle like Mike Evans does.